I felt the point. Perfect. All right. So it's the end of summer. Two things occurring. For some. Two things are occurring. Well, I guess three things. Some people are wrapping up last-minute vacations. Some people are going back to school or prepping for back to school. And that third group are recycling their golf clubs after a really bad season. Which bucket are you in?
Yeah.
Okay. All of the above. Perfect.
No. Well, not the last one.
No.
You'll keep playing?
Yeah. Well, when I can, but yeah.
Yeah.
I played a couple of weeks ago for the first time in probably 2 years.
Really?
I think I shot a 200.
That's awesome.
Maybe 202. It was awesome. It was the best afternoon of my life. It was like 110 degrees, super humid. I had the time of my life.
That's right. That's right. You could blame it on the heat.
That's what I did.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure. Totally.
That's
we talked high schools. Most like local high schools are starting, if they haven't already, this week, or not. Those aren't high schools. I think grade school is starting this week.
Right.
Most will start next week or the week after, and then our first college kid is gone next week, and then the second one the week after that.
Yeah.
And then it's our youngest is she's gone more than she's at home, so it's back to nice and peace and quiet, and all the crap that they brought home after their freshman year of school gets back out of the house.
Back to college, or you just take it to Goodwill?
Most of it is going back to college with them. There were a few items. So Target Corporation, I'm sure, loves this time of year, because I remember last year as we had two going into college for their first year, going to a Target in Bloomington and going to a Target in Knoxville. Dude, it was slammed. And I'm sure it's that way every year. But then when you move them out in May and you start pulling stuff out from under the bunk or whatever, and you're like, this hasn't even been opened.
Right.
Like, why did I buy this?
Right. How dare you?
So does that item still exist? I mean, you can't return it at that point, I don't think. Did it get willed to someone else? Hey, I've got this. Does anybody need one for these for your kids that will actually use it? And so here, just take it.
Right. Just leave it in the closet for the next kid.
Yeah. I think, is that like the textbooks that you spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on, and then you realize that the child never actually used it?
Right.
Not because they were ignoring it, but they actually never needed it in class, despite the fact that on the syllabus or preschool list of things to buy, it was listed. Like, you must have this $400 textbook, and it will just sit in the backpack for a year. And then when you go to sell it back, it's worth about $2.99.
Yeah.
Not $299. $2.99.
Yes.
But the classic thing, and this is telling my age, you take all the books back that you maybe spent, let's say you spent $300 on them new or whatever it was, some are new, some are used. You return them, you got $200 back or $150 back.
You went straight to Kilroy's.
Yeah. You didn't. Sorry, Mom and Dad. You didn't tell Mom and Dad, hey, I got $150 for it. No, you went to the bar
because they gave you cash. It was no paper trail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even burn a hole in your pocket, and you need to go get some pints of beer.
Yes, even at $2.99, you could still spend that money.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Well, $2.99 is at least 2.5 Coors Lights at Nick's in Bloomington.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So summer wrap up. Did you take any trips? Any vacations?
Ooh. I toured Michigan. I saw the UP for the first time.
Canada South.
It was fantastic. Well, it was 100 here. It was 65 up there and cloudy. It was
probably not bad.
No, it was great. It was great. How about you guys?
Was the water cold?
So cold. So cold. We've got a 9-year-old. It did not stop him. He just dove in. Like, this is great. There's a beach. There's water. I'm here. Let's do this.
Dad, come in the water. I'm like, nope.
Nope. You enjoy that.
Did you do any fishing?
No.
Okay.
We usually don't. We're not big.
You said that like hell no.
No.
Well, I just thought you were there. I'm sure it's great fishing up there. I'm just curious.
We went to the grocery store and picked up fish. But no, it was definitely gorgeous. But more to observe, hike, enjoy it. So yeah.
Yeah, I like fishing. Mostly the fishing that where you go to the store and you say, I'll have 7 ounces of that salmon there.
Yes.
Maybe 6 of those shrimp. Put them in a bag and let's go home.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite.
Yes, absolutely. I'm game for that too. How about you guys? Any big trips?
No.
Well, your college trip.
Erroneous. His wife and girls went on a trip.
Right.
And he had a staycation, which probably would be the best vacation ever.
Well, it was until it wasn't.
Well, true.
He and I went to Vegas for 2 days for a trade show.
It was legit
AWFS.
the work the entire time. It was
Yeah.
the worst trip,
I'm sure.
worst trip to Vegas I've ever had.
Yes.
It really was.
I mean, that's true. Like most people say, "Oh, Vegas, right?"
Right.
I go, "No, legit."
Yeah.
We were there 2 nights. We had dinner meetings both nights. We had a breakfast meeting the one morning we were there, not counting the morning. We got up at 5 a.m. to fly home. Very productive trip, and
Sure.
only 2 days. And most people say, "You're going all the way to Vegas for 2 days." I'm like,
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
We needed to be there. I'm glad we did it, even
Right.
though it was kind of exhausting, but
Yeah.
it was worth the trip.
No, definitely. I've spoken out there at conferences, and it's the same thing where you're just out there for a couple of days. You don't really see outside because you're stuck in these large venues, and it's like, where did all this time go? How did I not go out and enjoy it?
So I mean, it does suck that at the end of July it's like 115, 114 degrees, stupid hot.
Yeah.
But you're the only time you're outside is leaving the convention center to get in an Uber or taxi to go back to the hotel, and then go to a restaurant or whatever.
Yeah.
I felt like I had been reincarnated as like a Totino's pizza roll in an oven. That's how hot it was.
That's how hot it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say, and kudos to Tesla and Elon Musk. We did get to experience
The loop,
is that what it's called? The loop?
the Vegas loop.
Okay. So his boring company are doing a series or network of tunnels out there that they have these folks driving different Teslas. And so there's one that's done that takes you from the convention center to one of the newer resorts right by there. And it's nominal fee. I guess the next thing, they're maybe already started a tunnel from the convention center to the airport. That's going to be like, say $10 or $15?
Well, I think like when we bought a day pass for $5, the airport trip will ultimately be from like roughly the strip to the airport, a 10-minute drive underground, one-way tunnel in a Tesla.
Yeah.
And they'll ultimately have 70 miles of tunnel dug when it's all said and done. And this is obviously a multi-year project, but it was cool. It was really cool.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
You get to drive the Tesla or just
No,
ride
ride along.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, we were talking about this. I foresee that's when it becomes autonomous at some point, because, I mean, there's no pedestrians or any things that could be jumping out in front of the car. I figure the technology is probably there or will be there to drive.
You know
these
the
cars.
mail chutes and like sky rises where you stick the canister in the tube and like it sucks up. It's automatic. That's essentially what it's going to be. You're going to get it in a tube and you're just going to get sucked and flown down the tunnel. Yeah. So.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Industrious Podcast. Thank you all for joining us from wherever you guys get your podcasts, or if you happen to be watching on the Assessa YouTube channel, thank you very much for doing so. Today we are very honored, joined, yes, I was going to say honored. I was looking for something better than joined, by Mr. Or I should say Professor Mike Bensi.
Or Minster. It's fine too.
I was going to say.
Is that cheese?
That's not
Munster.
Munster.
Not to be confused with minister.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Anyway, Mike Bensi, welcome to the Industrious Podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is great. I appreciate it.
Well, wait, you said minister. You're not a minister, right?
Not a minister.
I mean, our last guest was technically an ordained minister. I guess you could say ordained is very loosely.
Oh, wow.
I thought if we went back to back ministers,
that'd be a record.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry to let you
and
down
very
there.
odd for us, but
Yes, right.
I've been to church twice in the last month.
I was going to say, this podcast is going into a different direction, Heaven.
Yeah, we talk all things.
Yes.
Yeah.
why don't you introduce yourself to our guests?
Yeah, you bet. Mike Bensi. I am a coach and consultant today. I say I like to help people lead people. Not originally from Indianapolis, grew up in the Chicagoland area. Grew up there through college, and then met my soon-to-be wife, now wife, at the time in college. And growing up in Chicago, I don't know about if you know anybody from there, but anybody who is from there believes anything south of I-80, there's nothing that exists, right? Chicago is the center of the universe. And so my idea was we would end up there, and she gave me a phone call and said, hey, I think Indy's going to be where we land. And so That was about 17 years ago. So we've been Hoosiers since then. Have 3 kids now, entering in the high school years, and have been just kind of enjoying them coming into their own for sure.
Yeah. Is Quinn from Chicago as well?
She's from Central Illinois, so
maybe I knew that. That's right.
Yeah. Decatur, Illinois.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, soybean bean capital of the world. Yes. You can smell it well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we have a facility in Arthur, Illinois.
Right.
And so kind of between Effingham to the south and
Yep.
Champaign-Urbana to the north. And
Yeah.
I was always told that, do you know where Effingham is? It's right next to your effing eggs. I was like, there you go, Midwest joke.
I love it. Yep.
Midwest joke.
We got it in. That's so great.
So if you mentioned I-80, does that mean you're a South Sider?
I lived on the south side for a
Okay.
while, Homewood, Flossmoor area, if you're familiar with it. But
Nope, because I only know the city.
you only know the city. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And my
for
friends
sure.
from the western or northern suburbs who
Yes.
2 hours away from the city, but always said they're from Chicago. I'm like,
Right.
dude, you're from Crystal Lake. Just
Yeah.
say you're from Crystal Lake.
Yes, right. It's easier to say that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How did you and Quinn meet? If she was from Decatur, did she do med school up somewhere north, like you Chicago?
Yeah, we met in college. So
Oh,
she
okay.
was sophomore year, I was senior, and I'm thinking, oh great, I'm out of here.
Robbing the cradle.
Yep.
Way
No,
to go.
absolutely. So yeah, we met in college. Got married while she was in medical school. She went to Southern Illinois,
Okay. Yeah.
down in Carbondale for a
Yeah.
bit, and then Springfield as well. So
Southern Illinois, the Salukis.
yes, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well done.
They made the dance. That's how you know.
Right.
Like
Well, and I know
sometime
two
ago.
guys actually
Yes.
played golf there. Bob Tresh played golf there, and somebody else I can't remember now.
Mm.
Anyway, sorry.
It's okay. It's
Segue.
okay. Yeah. No.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
I know your wife's a doctor here in town, which is fantastic. We appreciate her getting you guys down here.
Yeah.
It certainly betters the city.
Yeah.
Like
No,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, she makes it so much better. I just tag along for the fun. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
It's usually how
I'll
it works.
Yeah.
Make sure
no,
she
definitely.
watches this episode, if nothing else, for that
Right.
line alone.
No, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Get her in.
Well, cool. You mentioned kids' ages roughly?
Kids ages 2 in high school this year,
That's right.
freshman, sophomore, and then a 9-year-old. So 4th grade, he's starting.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
find out more at Ice Cream Social Night later this week.
Right.
We'll get the.
So 4th grade, you're cool with, like you've been there, done that. You're
Yes.
coasting through that.
Yes.
The 2 high schoolers are keeping things interesting.
It's another world. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got boyfriends, girlfriends,
yeah.
driving lessons, jobs. Son is going to try out for high school tennis later today. So yeah,
Nice.
it's almost like this next level of responsibility and trying to cart them everywhere because they just aren't driving yet. So
Right.
hopefully it'll come soon.
Yeah.
We'll be offloaded of.
You're an Uber,
carpool.
just not getting paid for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or thanked for it.
Well,
yes, at that age.
Why would you ask so much?
Right.
Like,
How dare I?
Yeah. Okay, bye.
you're sooner to get paid than thanked,
Yes.
just for the record.
Yes.
Which actually wouldn't be that bad.
No, for sure. For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So go into, if you will, your career.
Yeah.
You get down here. I mean, Quinn's is pretty self-explanatory, but
Yeah.
what were you doing before you moved down here, and then what'd you roll into?
Yeah. So before I moved here, I was in HR, human resources management, with a large manufacturing company. So it was great exposure to the field, to the industry, to just the world of HR. I focused on recruiting. I focused on, just hiring and firing, and just helping build different relationships, with unions and without unions. So it was a great exposure. And so when I came to Indiana, it was 2005. So if you think back then, Mitch Daniels had just been elected, making a lot of change in the state, and the state of Indiana was looking for people who did not have past government experience. They really wanted to have people come in and help them make a lot of good, positive change. And so fell into a couple of HR roles there, most notably the Bureau Motor Vehicles, in terms of just some of the positive changes they were trying to do in terms of wait times, customer service, and all of that. So from an HR standpoint, it was a really great time to be in the state in terms of, we were talking about culture before culture was cool, in terms of just treating people well and making sure they were paid well and involved in goal setting. So it was just so much, just great experience in terms of the leaders I worked with, the people that I got to experience throughout the state at that time. So it was a great, really intro, not only to HR, but just the state of Indiana and government and how to make a good place to work.
So you worked for the BMV is what you're saying.
Yes, long story short.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
That had to be in HR. That's got to be a lot of stories that you can't say on air.
No, not on air. And they were a lot of good stories in terms of just what you saw people doing, because we had a lot of buy-in. You had a lot of people there who just wanted to help other people. It wasn't people trying to make life miserable. It was like, hey, I don't like having long wait times. I don't like making it really difficult for people to get a driver's license. I want to make that easier. So they wanted to make things better, and so did we. So it was a really fun experience.
Yeah. Well, so at the top you said you help people lead people, and then you just mentioned two keywords: buy-in.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that a lot of your messaging, whether directly or indirectly, kind of ties back to buy-in, right? Because that is the essence of leadership is trying to create buy-in.
Right.
Speak to that if you could.
Yeah. Oh boy. So buy-in, I think, comes in a lot of different ways. If I think back to that BMV experience, so much of what I had experienced at that point was almost, command leadership. I need this done, so you will do it. And you get to the BMV and it's like, well, we want to get this done. What do you think? Could you find a better way to do it? And if so, what do you think about that? Could you actually try and lead that in a way? And so I think that buy-in piece is just so centered on getting people involved, helping make sure that their opinion matters, and showing that, boy, we are going to listen, and boy, you might actually come up with a better way that we were ever thinking. And so, that buy-in, I think when I always talk to leaders, it's, hey, are you really trying to push something here, or do you really want buy-in? Because if you want to push it, just tell them what to do and see how that goes. If you want buy-in, maybe your idea isn't the best. Maybe someone has a better idea. And could you get some buy-in that way on what you want to get across? So
certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, one way maybe works if you're, in the military.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
When you do your speaking engagements, like you mentioned out in Vegas before, and you talk on leadership, I'm sure it's that speech, like most others, have evolved a little bit over time.
Sure.
But if you were doing one, today, what aspect of leadership do you think is what is the hot button of today's form of leadership?
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of challenges today. Some of them haven't changed in terms of the questions that I get asked. Whether it's been HR, my consulting role, people are always asking, Mike, how do I find good people? How do I keep good people? Those things haven't changed. Did the pandemic heighten that? Did it make it more difficult? Absolutely. But the question was still there, like, how are we going to find good people? I think what's new, what's different lately in terms of just what I see organizations thinking about, leaders thinking about, one is just kind of all the social stuff that's going on and their role in it. Employees are looking at leaders differently in terms of their impact within that. And so thinking about how they pull that into their business, if they pull that in at all. Yeah. And then second, I think we've gone from, again, thinking of employment as just getting a paycheck to employment as having engaged employees. I think the next evolution of that is going to be thinking about how we create engaged and healthy employees from a mental standpoint, a well-being standpoint, and making sure that we're focused on that as well. The pandemic really pulled that out in terms of just thinking about people working from home and all the great benefits of that and all the negative consequences from that in terms of not just productivity, but just more in terms of loneliness factors and how people were engaging with others during that time. So when I think about the hot topics, that's where I go to in terms of what I hear from other leaders.
Sure. So, So what are you seeing today? I mean, you mentioned the pandemic and you just said loneliness, and obviously during the pandemic, in the height of it, it was really challenging because not only did people across all spectrums of the employment ladder not really know what was going on. A lot of leaders were leading sort of in the dark.
Right.
None of us had experienced something like that before. And then there was a lot of remote work at one point in time called by force, and then ultimately by choice, which still lingers for sure about how the way it's changed hybrid or remote work. What are you seeing now that we're quite a ways removed from that trend? What are you seeing out there amongst different companies and across different industries?
Yeah, I think those who were in the spot where they couldn't offer remote work, not a whole lot different. right? They've been working. I think if anything, they found more efficient ways of working together. They're more apt to look at what are flexible arrangements that we can create, even if it can't be just full-time remote work or sending people home, but what are just different ways of looking at it? Can we offer up different hours of work to help, for people who want to be home with kids, when they get off the bus, or put them on the bus, thinking about it differently in a way. Those who have, brought people back into the office, those who have done it well, again, think about that buy-in, they involved employees. They gave people time to process. They kind of gave them an opinion in terms of what that looked like, rather than those where it was a little bit tougher, where it was just, hey, on September 1, come on back and you're going to like it. And that just never worked out well in a way. I do see, just not so much somewhat pandemic, but I think just in terms of, the economy, how things have been running lately, just organizations looking at how do we run better, how do we run different. Not so much in terms of layoffs. I think people who jump to layoffs typically, find that there's consequences to that later on. It's more of just, hey, we know we can be doing this better. We should be doing this better. We need to look at things differently from an operational standpoint, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a combination of a whole bunch of different hybrid scenarios, and how do you just make those work?
Right.
And if you have 10 employees, 50 employees, 100 employees,
Mm-hmm.
you might have 5, 10, 20 different hybrid scenarios. Not everyone is necessarily going to be under this hybrid scenario.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that?
Right.
It's going to be challenging, but I think that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I talked to a leader last week who they have a hybrid. They say they come into the office once a week, and he used quotes just because that once a week, it's not mandatory, but they create an excuse for people to come in. Maybe it's important meetings, it's activities with others, it's ability to collaborate together. It's not that forced piece. And I think,
right.
That hybrid schedule, that hybrid world works when you're not forcing, you're just inviting people in, you're giving them a reason to come in, to come together, and making it more meaningful than just another meeting or because we said we need you in front of your desk.
Right. What it would be interesting to see is, by doing it that way, does he or she leader feel that John or Jane Doe employee isn't just going to come in that one day to check that off and go home.
Right.
They might say, you know what, 2 or 3 days, 3 days, I can get a ton of stuff done when I'm there. That works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I think that group in particular, they're focused on goals. They're focused on what they can accomplish, less about what are you doing in front of me right now. And when you can have those milestones set up and you're able to easily measure, that approach just goes so much better because you're able to just say, hey, I did get it done. We are moving the ball forward. It is working for them. Not saying that approach is right for everybody, but I think for those leaders, for those organizations who can make it work, they do see a lot of good benefits from it, for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. You've got a 30-second elevator pitch, so to speak.
Oh, boy.
For giving advice. What's like the meatiest thing you'd say to someone?
I'd ask, what do you want advice on, right? The topic of leadership is just so broad,
right?
In terms of, and the range of people who think about themselves as a leader is also so broad too, right? I'll sit with leaders of organizations, I'll sit with leadership teams, and then I'll sit with people who want to be in a leadership role. And so, when people ask me for advice, I'm trying to help get, hey, what's really, what are you really looking for? I met with a gentleman, he's in his early stages of his career earlier today, where he wanted to talk about, hey, what's my next step? How do I become that CEO someday? Where do I need to go? But he had just been given feedback from his manager that he's creating a lot of drama in the office in terms of people not working well with him, asking him to engage more, asking him to just say hello more to those people. And so, it became, just very focused in terms of, hey, what do you need to do in the moment? Yes, that's a great goal to get to. Let's get to you to be that CEO. And, where do you need to be right now? What are people asking for from you right now?
Right.
So my advice was listen to your manager, find a way to work with them, or find a different role, because maybe that's not for you.
Start your own gig.
Yeah. If you don't like to work with people, maybe that's telling you something.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I know, by the way, at 25, you don't go from entry to CEO.
Right.
But
yeah. Some do. Some win
the Powerball too.
Right. Absolutely. No, it is that long game. I'm also a adjunct professor, as you mentioned, at Butler University. So we'll have a good session on just, that career path. And so many people think of it as this nice stair-step ladder to get from one role to the next, and ultimately
Yeah, so share with our guests what you teach at Butler, and now that you've done that for a couple of years, how has that progressed? Has it been the way you thought it would be on day one, or has it kind of morphed into something else?
Great question. Yeah, it's really morphed. So I started right before the pandemic, and one of the classes was focused on its leadership perspectives, just kind of 101 into not just leadership, but really, hey, who am I as a leader? How do I show up? What are the things that make me great? What are the things that I might need to think about that are going to be challenging, that are going to be a shadow for me? And then how do I communicate that to other people so that they know who I am, and maybe that invites them in to share more about me? And so within that class, it really started off like people who wanted to be CEOs, wanted to be on the executive team. And whether it was the pandemic, whether it was just time, students are just asking for more of, I just want to be a good person. I want to be well-rounded. I want to have a family. I see my boss working 70, 80, 90 hours a week. I don't want that, right? I want to be able to be a good leader, be a good person, even if it doesn't mean that I get that corner office. So that's been one big change, I think. The second class that I teach focus more on organizational culture. It's been so much emphasis around, again, less on the retention side, more on the attraction side. Mm-hmm. How do I get people to work within my organization? And I think, too, I challenge them, how do you get involved in your organization to help the things that you see in your culture? And really pushing that as well, because everybody sees something as an opportunity to improve. What better way to help the organization by saying, hey, I think I might know a way to go about that. So both are fun classes for sure, and have changed so much over the last 5 years.
Right. Yeah. Are you glad to be doing it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I look forward to it every semester. The toughest part for me is always just putting it all together, and, the slides, and, making sure I've gotten all the materials ready. But once we go live, I love it. We've got, or just this summer, we will meet on Saturdays for 6 hours, and anybody who wants to talk about leadership themselves and hang out with me for 6 hours on a Saturday, they've got to be good people. So
is that every Saturday during that semester?
Yeah, every Saturday for about 4 weeks, I think. So give them a break for Memorial Day, the race day weekend, and then we come back. So yeah, it's a good time.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long day.
It's a long day.
I mean, no offense to you. It's a long day.
No. I I sleep well that night for sure.
Is that the only day of the week they do that class then?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah. It's for people who, trying to get in another class, focus on, really the fall semester. But I think also the people that take it appreciate it, because, it can go by so quickly. They have a lot of the summer left to enjoy.
So that's at the undergrad level?
That's at the MBA level.
MBA, okay.
Yeah. So you've got people, with full-time jobs, with families,
right.
So yeah, they've got a lot going on. So be able to knock a lot out in a short amount of time, they value that.
Just out of curiosity, since MBA class, what would you say the average age is of the typical class?
Oh, good question. I'd say probably late 20s on average. Yeah, I'll still get a student or two right out of college where they're like, I don't know if I have a whole lot to offer, but man, this is great. And then I had one guy, so great, where his daughter was going through Butler undergrad while he was going to get his MBA. So cool. It's really a fun range, right?
Yeah.
And everybody learns from each other in that setting when that can happen. So yeah.
Well, there's an advantage there, even if the average age is late 20s, which I look back at my late 20s and I think I didn't know anything then.
Right.
But at, let's say, 29, I still knew a lot more than I did at 22 or 23.
Yes.
So just having and then people coming from various industries or backgrounds in that short span, to be able to share those experiences.
Right.
Because, you go back to that question when I said, what's the meatiest piece of advice you would give? And you said, well, that depends on my audience.
Right.
And it's like, how do you, for those who are younger or have less experience in the working world, how do you give advice that you've accumulated over 25 plus years, that is real, but not discouraging? And discouraging might be too strong of a word, but for someone who's 25, like that person you noted,
right,
not only is there advice to give to try to achieve a long-term goal, but the reality of your career might change, or your job might change, or what you're doing, your function might change 3 or 4 times between here and there, and you've just got to be willing to manage that.
Right. Yeah, no, I think in that setting, even from that class, right, people walk away with just this aha moment of, one, like, yeah, hey, if I see an opportunity that I want to take and it looks like a lateral transfer, that's okay. I don't need to keep moving up. I think, again, so much of us think that career path is just going to be straight up, when so many times it's a little bit over, maybe a little bit back down, maybe a bit of a pause. Those are okay, right? And it will be okay long term for you. I think the other piece is just don't try and be somebody you're not, meaning so much of our leadership experiences come from people that we've worked with, grown up with. So many people try to be that other person, I think, when they're clearly not, right? I had a great boss. He was so outgoing. He could walk in a room, just everybody would gravitate towards him. And I'm more on the introverted side. I really like people. I just enjoy one-on-one. And so, finding what is your way, even though it might be different than the person you looked up to. So yeah, those are typically, kind of the aha moments that I hear from those students, and just in terms of thinking about, where they want to go next.
Well, it seems like you may have just answered my next question, which was, what would you say to your 25-year-old self?
Oh yeah, good question. I think it'd definitely be, hey, it'll be okay in a way. At 25, I hadn't gotten married yet, was still living in Illinois probably at the time. I never would have thought I'd be consulting on my own. I'd own my own business, right? It seemed like I'd be following that corporate ladder. So I think, being okay with those adjustments, whether, it was going back to school, it was making a move, was working for state government, which I never thought I would do. So you just never know. And a lot of those things eventually come with really great learnings and really great opportunities.
Taking risks and being uncomfortable.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? How does that resonate with you guys?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say this to my kids mostly, partially because it's true, but also so I can speak their language. But my quote to them is, "Scared money don't make no money." And they're like, "How do you know that song, Dad?" I'm like, I have a radio. But and I'm like, I'm like, guys, do you know what that means? And they give me their 15, 16, 17-year-old answer. And I'm like, well, in your perspective, yes, you're right. But what it means is you can't get anywhere if you're not willing to take a little risk. You'll never hear yes if you're too afraid to hear no. And it's okay to hear no. It doesn't mean never. It just means not right now or not this option. So change a little bit, be a little bit patient, find another angle, and see if you can work to the yes.
Yeah. I love it. That's great. Awesome.
Any parting words of wisdom?
Boy, I think that's a great way to end it. I love it. Yeah, be okay with just being impatient. Thinking of my 9-year-old, right? Like, hey, it's okay to be bored. I do not need to fill your time. And then, right?
True story.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a very polite way of saying, please go bother your mother.
Oh, so much, yes.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
This was great. I appreciate it.
Sounds good. And thank all you guys out there for joining us today on this episode of the Industrious Podcast. We appreciate you guys joining us from wherever you get your podcasts, or for those of you watching on the Assessor YouTube channel, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, if you haven't hit that subscriber button, please do so. It won't cost you a single penny. I'm trying to lead you to that little red area that says subscribe. Just click on it. It's no big deal. And hit that notification bell so you can be alerted when new episodes like this one drop. And don't forget, in the meantime, be industrious.